everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I'm super passionate about, which is emotional healing. I've done an enormous amount of work on the emotional healing, on my emotional healing journey since I have been diagnosed with cancer. So for me, it's not something that you can just ignore. Cancer, it's a very complex disease, and I have listened to a lot of experts talk about it. Not only just integrative doctors, but people that have worked with patients and healed them in a kind of an emotional level. I'm not sure if you have been watching the Radical Remission documentary series, which is it's free at the moment. I think that we are on the last 3 days, and one of the episodes talk about emotional healing, and the one last night talked about spiritual healing. I think for me it was almost like a combination of both, because I believe in God, and you don't have to believe in God, but for me that's the emotional healing, the spiritual healing came very much hand in hand. So when I first heard that I had cancer, I kind of thought God wanted to tell me something, and the message that came through was that I needed to reconnect with my immediate family, which I had been distanced from a lot of years. So that was a big step for me. There was a lot of hurt. It was a big wound inside me, that only the thought of doing that would just physically would make me feel sick, like as in my heart will be running really fast, and I'll be thinking there's no way I can do this. But it's slowly, just by thinking that, I started opening my heart, and I started really feeling that I needed to do something about that. And I had a friend who helped me to reconnect with my family. And shortly after, it was still during my chemotherapy, we had another disagreement. And during that disagreement, I had just had my chemotherapy, and normally on Fridays I would go to the hospital, I would receive some of the chemotherapy, and I would come home with a pump for 48 hours until the Sunday. So really I would crash on my physical body on the Sunday after my body had received 48 hours of chemotherapy. But on this particular Friday, as soon as I get home, I had gotten really stressed during the day, and physically I felt that my body was in a really bad space. I remember my husband looking at me. I was laying down in bed after I had come home from hospital, and I could see in his face that he was scared, because he could see that I wasn't well. So after I went through that experience, I spoke to my exercise physiologist about how you could physically release the stress from your body, because I had physically felt the stress in my body, and I needed to find ways to physically get rid of the stress, because stress and cancer, they go hand in hand too. And if you talk about people, even the most most skeptical people ever, they will mention stress. They'll mention that they perhaps had a job that was very stressful. They'll mention that perhaps they had a stressful life, and that's not linked to any emotional healing or spiritual healing. It's just that, they feel that their stress has affected them, and that's also proven these days that stress can impact on how your immune system physically works, and physically is fighting some sort of disease or illness or infection. So I asked him, and he's a very clever guy, and I asked him if there was any way that I could stop the physical stress in my body. So my whole journey of understanding a little bit more about the whole body and mind connection started. And he recommended me a book. I started reading books and books about the whole body and mind connection, and what I could do physically to release stress when I felt the stress physically in my body. Because let's face it, living a life without stress is it's crazy it's almost impossible to think that you can do that. But so that's why for me it was important to find ways to release that stress when I felt that. So I started doing some meditation. I started going to church a bit more often. I started doing my prayers, and slowly I could feel that my heart was opening up a little bit more to work on those wounds that were inside me, like deep down buried, and I was so scared to get those out. So at the end of my treatment, a very good friend of mine who had seen one of her best friends going through the same treatment as I had been said to me, this will be the toughest time for you when you finish your treatment and you have to go back to normal life. And indeed, she was so correct. It was a really hard time to find my way back into, being a mom, going back to thinking about going back to work, doing normal things like socially, and just finding my place back in society. And because she had told me that, I went to see a psychologist, and the psychologist helped me immensely. She really, once I started talking about all my pain and my wounds and my hurt and my traumas, you know, she would help me to work through those, acknowledge them, but work through those, understand them, and just find a way to overcome them. It wasn't like a session that I would go in and she would, give me a plan and I would work towards this plan. We would just, I am a very proactive person. I will go in with a specific topic that I wanted to talk about, and she would just make me think, and she'll make me sit with my pain and really work through it by myself. And sometimes it would take me a month before I saw her again to work through that inside me, and just really getting the answers. Sometimes I would be like, oh, is this what happened? Is this how I felt? And I think, when this is a subject that I'm so passionate about, because I have spoken to lots of people that they go through cancer treatment, they go through, the motions of that automatic conveyor belt that you put it on, and you don't stop to look after yourself fully. And when I say fully, it's physically and mentally and emotionally. And after treatment, you are left with a broken, body, or a broken emotion state, and a broken heart, because it's tough. It's not easy. And if you don't take this time to work through your traumas, to work through your emotions, I'm not sure you're gonna have another time that you can stop and focusing on yourself, because this is a big wake up call. This is a big, big opportunity for you to go. There's something wrong here, And I have spoken to many people that for one, they ignore the whole emotional healing altogether, and they keep going through treatment after treatment, saying to themselves, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Now I take my head off for people that are fine and they keep being fine, but I know how hard it is, and I can't see how you can be fine through this whole process and come out the other side and just as straight back into where you left before. And I also have spoken to people that have dabbed into a little bit, like they've looked after their physical health, they, changed their diet, they're doing exercise, but they're too scared to go deep down onto their pain and their wounds and their traumas, because they don't want to open that can of worms. And for me, that was such an important part of the healing process, that I couldn't feel the way I feel now, which is way better than I have ever felt before cancer, if I hadn't worked through my traumas, if I hadn't worked through my pain, if I hadn't sat down with my pain and had faced my pain and have been able to work through it and been open to work through it. Now, it wasn't easy. It's not easy. I still see my psychologist, a little less often now, but I still keep working on it. And the more I work on it, the better I feel. The more tools I get, the more I get to know myself, the more I feel in tune with what's happening in my body, with my emotions, and what I can do about it. The tools that I can use to get back into balance, get back into feeling good about myself. So if you are going through cancer, and if you are going through cancer treatment, don't discount, don't dismiss the fact that we are whole. We are just not the physical body. We are the mental body, the spiritual body, if you like. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a religion, doesn't have to be a god, but it's just being part of something bigger than ourselves. So do the work, sit with your pain. As painful as it is, it's so rewarding when you get on the other side, when when you feel that it's almost like a part of you has died, because all that pain that you have been holding on to, it's no longer there, and you have created a space for you to be whoever you want to be, or somebody else, and or you just create more space for you. And I think that is incredibly valuable, and so worth doing. I hope this is helpful, especially in times where everybody is uncertain, and everybody, once we are asked to stay at home and confined into our homes, we're gonna have to learn a bit more to stay with our own selves, to sit quietly, to have time out from ourselves, even inside our own house, so we don't get in each other's nerves. And that's when it's really beneficial to be able to sit with ourselves, and just to be able to be open and to doing the work. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you soon.